Hello and welcome back to the Geek Show. We're just not halfway through, but we're a quarter of the way through our Doctor Who's episode. So let's just get straight onto it. The good old-fashioned Chibnall bashing that we've so grown to love throughout this era. But before we get onto the hates, let's just get a bit with the love. We're making a very lovey episode today. What did you love about the Chibnall leader?
See, I'm not like you. Like, I don't hate the era. It's not the best. It's not the best, but I still enjoy it. Like, I love 13 as a character. Like, I adore 13.
Yeah.
So she really obviously carries the Chibnall era because we only had one Doctor in this era. So that's one thing I love about it. I love the historical stories we've had.
Yeah.
Minus the fact they do feel like they've wedged in an alien. Don't really know why they said to do that because pure historicals were a big deal in Doctor Who in the 60s.
Yeah.
Basically, the characters just got caught up in historical events and it was brilliant to watch. So I don't know why they thought they had to just ram in aliens in there. That's my only issue. Like Demons in the Punjab or Rosa didn't need that sort of alien thing. Could have just had a human element in the way. And I love Yaz. I love the companion of Yaz. She's really grown on me.
Yeah, I feel like Yaz is somebody that we started off with. Maybe the first two seasons we weren't big fans of Yaz. I found her to be a little bit like she'd just been squashed in there.
She was just there, yeah.
Yeah, but she has definitely grown on me, and maybe it's just because we're finally getting to see her like shine now by herself almost, because I feel like Dan's kind of been tacked on. I would say, yeah, one thing I've definitely loved about the Chibnall leader has been historical stuff. For once, we're getting people dressing up in historical outfits instead of just showing up in the modern day, which may have just been, I think in previous years, the whole not wearing historical costumes may have been because of budget. You know, BBC is very stingy sometimes when it comes to what exactly Doctor Who can actually have money for. I've also I'm trying to think here what have I loved. It's a very difficult thing to ask.
You're so pessimistic when it comes to this
I'm
era.
not pessimistic, I'm just realistic about what Chibnall's done. I would say, let's think here, I think he has brought a lot of like hype to the show almost, maybe, I don't know. That sounds very weird to say, but I would say it's brought a lot of discussion to the fandom, and I think maybe it's gotten rid of some toxic stuff in the fandom that maybe wasn't welcome there to begin with. Like, I think when Jodie Whittaker was announced as the 13th Doctor, there was a lot of backlash, and I don't know if a lot of that was because there is this misogynistic side of the fandom, and maybe having those people not be there anymore has provided a bit more of a safer fandom. Especially, I think one of the things I've quite loved about I've loved about the Chibnall leader has been seeing little girls actually get to dress up as the Doctor. And I loved her costume as well. Like, there's stuff to love about it. Even the TARDIS design has grown on me a little bit.
Visually, it's the most stunning era.
Yes, that's what it's nothing. It's the visuals.
Yeah.
I love the opening crawl as well.
The opening theme is one of the best ones we've had in the show.
Yes.
Like, I'm still a sucker for the traditional, like, 80s, like, early 80s one,
Yeah.
but then that's just because it's my favourite era of it. But it is up there. Like, the 13th one is so good. And it's so pretty,
stunning.
like, all the colours. And
I'd say a lot of it has also been very well directed when we've not got Chibnall directing.
yeah, well, he doesn't direct, he just writes the stories.
I think he's directed a couple of things here and there.
Has he?
Yeah, he's do. Anyway, enough about the love. Let's get on to the hate.
Well,
come on, let's move on to the hate bashing. This is where I bring up like my hate speech that I made about Chibnall.
It's kind of an era that didn't really know, in my eyes, didn't know what it was doing at the start. In the last couple of episodes, we finally got Yaz and 13 becoming a thing, you know?
Yeah.
And they have like really, really emotional, like, you know, scenes with each other and just interactions. If they had done stuff, like scenes like that with characters in the other seasons,
yeah, I
think that would have even brought it up a bit. We just don't have the same emotional level we're used to, but then it does feel very classic Who-like.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like what's happened is Chibnall's era was never really going to do that well because it's come off of Russell T Davies and Stephen Moffat, who I would say are both fantastic screenwriters. I mean, I'll admit they have had their wobbles.
Well, yeah, they've had their faulty stories too.
Yeah, the faulty stories. But it's one thing I've actually missed about about Moffat's era is the fact that Moffat used to write some fantastic speeches, or had someone writing some fantastic speeches. And I feel like now with the writing with Doctor Who, it's far too quippy.
Yeah, it just kind of feels... not empty, but it's a bit of a weird one, and the pacing's kind of wrong in the era. So basically, it does feel like it's trying to do a Classic Who type like vibe, but with 50-minute episodes, that doesn't work. Pacing wise, you need a longer story. Like, we think about it, so in New Who, most of the really good stories are 2-parters or like the hour ones. The only one that I can think off the top of my head that is 50 minutes and is amazing is Midnight, but that would have suffered if it had been longer, because it's quite a small, compact story. That's why I quite like Classic Who, because they can have like 4-parters or 6-parters, or in Second Doctor's last story, 10 parts, 5 hours. That's how long the War Games is, but it does not feel like 5 hours.
But the thing is, I don't know if we want longer Chibnall stories, because
there is that, but you do feel like he's trying to go for a big scale, and it doesn't work.
Well, it worked with the Flux.
Yeah, about to say that Flux was an example of this is why you need longer time to tell. It was one big story, and also I think what also suffers is there isn't really a story arc that we're used to in New Who.
Yeah, I mean, just moving on from the hate, I'm just gonna say, what could we wish we'd have seen more of with Chibnall's era? I'm gonna start by saying I wish we'd actually seen the whole thing be kind of set out like the Flux. Like, where it should have just been one big arc sort of thing. I loved the Flux because it actually did bring back the arc. I felt like before then it felt very disjoined, and that might have just been Chibnall going, I don't want to be like Moffat, but I think the series suffered as a whole because of it, because it did feel very, what the hell is going on here?
I wanted back finales to a season, if that makes sense, because especially season 11, or series 11, I keep seasons classic, series is New Who. Series 11, the last story it could have been anywhere in the series, and then it was just like, oh yeah, Doctor Who, that's it, done for the series. And you're kind of like, right, okay, I just feel like nothing was achieved in that episode, whereas when we have previous series, there's always the wrap-up of a story arc or something like that. It makes sense, but we don't really have that. Another thing that I do love about 13's era, I quite like the music.
Yeah, there is something very... I mean, it's a feast for your ears.
I do miss Murray Gold's like music, what we had from 2005 to 2018, but there's something really magical almost about 13's music. Especially her theme tune. I just wish they'd use her theme tune more. It barely ever pops up.
Yeah, unless there's like a really... I feel like they might play at the end, but who knows. Anyway, just before we wrap up here, what do you think Chibnall's era is going to be remembered for?
Dividing the fandom, probably. It was just kind of sad to think about it.
I mean, I think it's one of the biggest jokes that you can kind of constantly hear, especially with fandoms in general, is like, for example, there's nobody that hates Star Wars more than Star Wars fans. And I would say that's almost very similar to Doctor Who fans. That is a very good analogy, right? Please tell me that.
No, that is actually really good. It's very true.
We will watch it religiously, but we watch it so we can complain about it later. Hence the reason we do this show. And I think for Chibnall's era, just before we wrap up here, I think Chibnall's era is going to be remembered as the one that could have been so much more.
Yeah, I think it'll be remembered for taking a step towards, being different. In terms of having a female doctor, having more queer representation, and just, like more, you could say, try to be more ambitious storylines with the Timeless Child. I will not say whether I like that storyline or not. I still haven't decided, because we haven't really got a conclusion to it.
I feel like Chibnall's pulled some pretty great stories out, and then he has left them. Like we were saying here, do we know if the universe is still, like, half the universe is still gone?
After Flux? I have no idea. I have no idea.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that wraps up this section. So we thought we'd just do a little bit of throwback from the last time we did a Doctor Who episode, and we would put on one of our favourite parody songs of all time.
Is so bad.
It's not bad, it's just, it sums up how we feel. No, it doesn't actually.
No, it doesn't really.
We would sing better. Anyway, so our next song is Doctor in Distress by David Bosca and Richard B. Brooks.